Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on training opportunities within the NIH Blueprint for Neuroscience Research and Brain Initiative. You will be muted during the presentation. Please type your questions in the Q&A box, or you can save them for our breakout rooms at the end, which will be divided by program. This webinar will be recorded. Slides in the recording will be shared with everyone who registered, whether you're able to attend or not, after the event, approximately 2 weeks after. So I'm Dr. Lauren Ulrich. I am a co-chair of the team training for the NIH Blueprint and Brain Initiative, and I'll take us through the agenda and the beginning of our the introduction to our webinar. So today we'll start what are the Blueprint and Brain initiatives, and then we'll talk about the individual awards, our institutional awards, and then we'll have a Q&A and breakout session at the end. The NIH Blueprint for Neuroscience Research, our mission is to accelerate transformative discoveries in brain function, health, aging, and disease. And this is a collaborative framework that includes the NIH Office of the Director together with several NIH institutes, centers, and offices that all support research on the nervous system. And you can see the full list of the participating institutes, centers, and offices on the right. We believe that by pooling our resources and expertise, as the NIH Blueprint, we can identify cross-cutting areas of research and confront challenges that are too large for any single institute or center to handle on their own. Since its inception in 2004, Blueprint has supported the development of new research initiatives, training opportunities that we'll talk about today, and tools and resources for the neuroscience community. I would really like to direct your attention to the program page at nih.gov/neuroscience blueprint. This page is currently in development, but there is some information there, and continue to monitor that page as time goes on, because we'll put important information and announcements related to the blueprint there. The NIH Brain Initiative is to revolutionize our understanding of the human brain by accelerating the development and application of innovative technologies. And this is actually part of a partnership between 5 US federal agencies and private foundations that was established a little more than a decade ago. The NIH part of the Brain Initiative is made up of 10 different institutes that are more or less overlapping with the institutes that participate in the NIH Blueprint, and that's why we manage them together. The goal of the Brain Initiative is to leverage emerging technologies to enable new discoveries about how the brain works, foster a tool-driven revolution to identify and test new therapies for human brain disorders, and to change the way we're doing science to maintain our global competitiveness. Brain also has its own program page at nih.gov/brain. And as you can tell from the missions of these 2 different trans NIH initiatives, they have complementary foci, where the Blueprint is much broader, neuroscience focused, and the Brain Initiative is very sort of laser focused. And as you might have noticed in our introduction slide, we had some of our programs are supported by both of the initiatives. Some are supported only by Blueprint, and some are supported only by Brain, and that is indicated by color coding. So the salmon for the Brain Initiative, blue for Blueprint, and purple if they both participate. So like I said, both of these are trans NIH programs that support neuroscience, and all of the training programs within both of these initiatives are managed by the same cross-IC team that are managed by myself and Dr. Ashley Van Veer, who you'll hear from later. And so just pay attention when you're listening to the webinar or thinking about applying to these, to make sure that your particular interest in your particular science will fit within the program that we describe. And if you have any questions about either the programs or the mission fit, you're welcome to contact this email address, bptraining@nih.gov. And whoever it needs to go to, we will get it to the correct person. I also wanted to say a note at the top about what we call parent NOFOs and the relationship between those and these trans NIH training programs. So you may have noticed, or you may know, that different versions of these programs were previously administered mostly through PARs and RFAs, which are types of funding opportunity announcements that are specifically targeted to individual programs. So for example, the jointly sponsored T32 program had a jointly sponsored T32 NOFO. But due to the NOFO consolidation, NIH has been limiting the use of these bespoke standalone NOFOs. And so where possible, Blueprint and Brain are trying to use what we call parent NOFOs to administer our training programs. And parent NOFOs are NIH-wide broad funding announcements that allow researchers to submit investigator-initiated grant applications. And there's some nuances here, and we'll go into more specific instructions when we talk about each of the programs. But just generally, one thing to remember is that if you're submitting a resubmission, there are some rules around that. Then if you had originally submitted to an RFA, the resubmission has to go to an RFA and PA to PA. But if you have an institutional program that was already funded and you're looking to renew it, it can be submitted to any funding opportunity of the same activity code. So you don't have that same rule for a renewal. And the other piece that I'd like to say is please continue to monitor grants.gov, the new institute funding priority pages, and the program pages that I mentioned earlier for updates, because this is how we are managing these programs now, but that could always change in the future. And so please, again, email us and reach out before you apply so that we can ensure you have the most up-to-date information. Okay, and with that, we will start by talking about our individual awards. We have the F99K00, which Blueprint and Brain participate in, and then the K99R00, which is specific to the Brain Initiative. And I will start us off by talking about the Academic Career Transition Initiative for Opportunities in Neuroscience, or the Action Potential Program that we are administering through the parent F99K00. The Action Potential Program, the purpose of this program is really to support neuroscience trainees that are committed to research careers at that vulnerable transition point between PhD and postdoc. We hope that participation in this program will enhance self-efficacy via that intentional commitment to the academic research path and a clear, structured pathway to competitive postdoc position. We also, through this program, encourage strong, accountable mentorship in both phases and provide a connected cross-institute trainee community in neuroscience. For the F99K00, this program will support the last 1 to 2 years of graduate school, and we usually recommend that you apply in your 3rd or 4th year, but as long as you will have 1 to 2 years at time of award, which is usually 1.5 to 2.5 years before you intend to defend, then you are eligible to apply. So it will fund those last 1 to 2 years of graduate school and then provide 3 years in the K00 phase for postdoc. And this is a little bit of a change from previous versions of the F99K00. So just note that the K00 phase is 3 years through its parent. Through this program, we also provide this community piece that I had talked about earlier. So we have a listserv for awardees, we have an annual meeting that we require attendance at, we have a Teams site, and we also have peer mentoring circles to really try to give both that peer and social support, and as well as the programmatic and administrative support to help you continue on your pathway. I'll note that for this F99K00, the transition is not automatic. Awardees still must submit a K00 application, which is reviewed internally, and the postdoctoral research can be different than what was originally proposed in that original F99 application, because we know that you didn't know where you were going. You hadn't identified your postdoc mentor at the time that you put in that proposal. So it can be different, but it still must be strong. The research must be strong, the commitment from the mentor and the institution must be strong, et cetera. And in order to activate the K00 phase, you must have been offered and accepted a neuroscience-focused postdoctoral research position within the Blueprint or the BRAIN mission. So one of those participating institutes, your research must fit into one of those missions. In terms of the eligibility / the intended participants, that is the same as the parent F99K00. So your career goal should be, at time of application, it should be interest in that independent research career. You must hold or be part of a PhD or equivalent research doctoral degree program that does not require post-degree clinical training, because the F99K00 is intended to be continuous in time. So we can't have that clinical training breaking up those two phases. Your institution must be a domestic US institution for both phases, both the grad and the postdoc phase. As I said earlier, you have to have at least 1 year left in your PhD at time of award, and you also must be a US citizen or permanent resident by time of award. Specific for the Action Potential program, both phases of the research must fit within one of the missions of one of the participating institutes or offices that are part of Blueprint or BRAIN. When it comes to applying for the Action Potential program, I definitely recommend that you reach out to us and email bpf99k00@nih.gov to review your specific aims before you apply, so we can make sure that they're appropriate. You will submit an application to the parent F99K00 funding opportunity, and it's helpful if you identify your interest in the program by referencing the Neuroscience Blueprint in Section A, but if you don't, we will still try and find and consider all neuroscience applications, related applications, but this just helps us know that you are interested. We do not we will accept applications for all receipt dates. We don't prioritize any council date over any other one. So there will be 3 receipt dates a year. And you must be assigned to any of the Blueprint or BRAIN initiative institutes, that F99 application. And you can request assignment to any of those institutes. And then lastly, I'll say the final determination of mission fit is done by NIH staff. And then if you are selected for this program, that will be communicated at time of award. If you're not selected for the Action Potential program, the institutes that participate in the F99 can still fund those applications and pick them up and manage them the way that they manage all their other individual awards. So happy to answer any other questions that you have afterwards when we go to the breakout sessions. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carrie Johnson to talk about the BRAIN initiative, parent K99R00.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm Carrie Johnson. I'm a program director at NINDS, and I co-lead the BRAIN Initiative's K99 program with Ashley and Lauren. So the goal of the BRAIN K99R00 program is to foster the development of creative, independent researchers who will be prepared to establish independent research programs, compete for subsequent independent funding, and whose research programs will advance the mission of the NIH and specifically BRAIN Initiative research areas. K99 and R00 awardees will have opportunities to integrate into the BRAIN Initiative community. So this is an advantage of getting funded through a program. And this includes the opportunity to attend our biennial BRAIN Initiative conference and networking events that are held each year at SFN. The BRAIN Initiative previously had a standalone funding opportunity for K99 applications, but going forward, applications to the parent K99 NOFO that are relevant to the BRAIN Initiative mission space will be considered for support. The K99 supports the transition from postdoc to tenure track faculty positions. The K-99 phase is a 1 to 2 year mentored phase that is designed to support training and professional development that will prepare the PI to establish an independent research program. And then the R00 phase then provides support and protected time for research during the first 3 years of the PI's assistant professor or equivalent position. And like Lauren was describing with the K00, the transition is not automatic. You do have to apply for the R00 phase. Through both phases, PIs will be strongly encouraged to attend the biennial Brain Initiative Conference, which features a popular early career networking event and provides opportunities to present your work. To be eligible for consideration for brain funding of your K-99, you must be doing research that falls within the Brain Initiative mission space, and we encourage you to visit the Brain Initiative's website for additional information on brain priority areas. In addition, your application must be assigned to one of the NIH institutes or centers that participates in the Brain Initiative. All applications must follow the eligibility requirements that are specified in the parent K99R00 NOFOs. And in particular, I'll point out that the applicant must have less than 4 years of postdoc experience at the time the application is submitted. The Brain Initiative team will defer to the assigned IC for final decisions on eligibility, including eligibility extension decisions. So if you have questions about your eligibility, we do encourage you to contact the relevant IC training office to discuss that. If you think your K-99 application might align with the Brain Initiative mission, in addition to reaching out to the training office at the IC where you think your application should be assigned to, we do encourage you to email us at braininitiativetraining@nih.gov so that we can review alignment with the Brain Initiative mission before you apply. But this is not required. We will go through applications and identify all the applications that are relevant for consideration. For K-99s, the Brain Initiative will consider applications for all council rounds, and final determinations of mission fit will be made by Brain Initiative staff after applications have been assigned to a participating IC. If your application is selected for funding through the Brain K-99 program, your program officer will let you know around the time the award is being made. And if your application is not funded by the Brain Initiative, it will still be eligible for consideration for funding by the assigned IC. After the presentations are over, I will be available in the K-99 breakout room to answer questions, and you are also welcome to send questions to the Brain training email address that's shown on this slide. And now I will turn it over to my colleague, Marguerite Matthews, who's going to kick off talking about the institutional awards.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Johnson. Hello, everyone. My name is Marguerite Matthews, and I'm a program director at the National Institute of Neurological Diseases and Stroke. Next, we will be talking about institutional awards. This is important that this is not for students to apply to directly. These are programs that faculty or administrators at institutions would apply for to run a program at their institutions, and students would apply to a given organization and not directly to the NIH. And so we'll be going over the Ascend R25 program, which is run through the Blueprint and Brain. And then my colleague will talk about computational training for next generation scientists, which is a Blueprint only program. And then we'll talk about our training opportunities, the jointly sponsored T32 and T15, which are Blueprint only programs. And so for the Ascend program, which is Advancing Specialized Collegiate Experiences Through Neuroscience Discoveries program, this is an opportunity that aims to provide undergraduate research education training through partnerships between research-intensive institutions and institutions with a substantial enrollment of undergraduate neuroscience majors from populations that typically don't have access to research-intensive opportunities. So the idea of these programs are to prepare undergraduates who have limited access to research to get these research experiences so they can become competitive when entering into PhD training programs in the neurosciences. And so some main components of this program would be institutional partnerships, authentic research-intensive research experiences, the opportunity to develop skills, both technical skills in the lab, but also some additional professional development skills, mentorship, which is really important component of this program. There's potential for an annual meeting in this new climate, still TBD, but also access to graduate recruitment. I know there was a comment in the chat about potential PhD applicants, and because this is geared towards getting students into PhD programs, we have partnerships with our training programs funded by Blueprint and Brain Institutes and Centers at the NIH, and also networking. So for undergraduates to network with each other, those that are participating in this program, but also with program alum who have gone on to PhD programs, MD programs, and are now professionals with real jobs. So this program is intended to build collaboration between research-intensive institutions, so R1 and R2, with those programs that have rigorous neuroscience graduate training programs and resource-limited institutions. It's also meant to provide undergraduates from across the country with access to authentic neuroscience research training experiences. It's meant to reduce barriers for undergraduates with limited access to neuroscience research to matriculate into neuroscience PhD programs and provide a connected cross-institute neuroscience trainee community. So regardless of the area of neuroscience, everyone is getting a chance to sort of explore and see what areas they might want to specialize in so that they can go on further down and get that F99 and the K99. So as I mentioned before, some of the key features of these programs would have all of the things listed for each program. Those would make strong applications that really take advantage of existing PhD training programs and programs at other institutions that have a large undergraduate focus, merging those together to create strong partnerships to utilize the expertise of faculty across different institution types. Outstanding mentorship, obviously, is one that's really important for the training of undergraduates, both in their undergraduate research experiences and beyond. Having access to these authentic research experiences where they're getting to have some level of control over their research projects, to have an understanding of what it means to be involved in research, various opportunities for them to develop skills, and of course the networking. So the way this is structured is that it's a year-round program. Preferably 2 years are dedicated per participant. So during the school year, they have access to doing part-time research, getting mentoring, and then working on their skill development through technical and professional development. And then during the summer, having access to full-time paid research opportunities and continuing to have mentoring and access to different networking opportunities. We recommend that any interested faculty who are looking to have this institutional award to send us an email so that we can review your specific aims and ensure that you are meeting the priorities as outlined in this presentation and also on the website. To participate in Ascend, you will need to use the newly published research education program parent R25 Novo, and it's linked in these slides, and you will have access to this after the recording. But those all R25 applications will be utilized through there. We will prioritize applications for January, but we can discuss that if the applications come in off cycle. It will also be important to identify your interest in the program by utilizing the Neuroscience Blueprint. Since this is going to a large parent grant, it makes it easier for us to find you if you are interested. And then final determination of mission fit is done by NIH staff, and selection for the program will be communicated at the time of award. And now I will pass it off to my colleague, Dr. Malik.
Hello, my name is Jessica Malik. I'm a program officer at NIDA, and today I'm going to be talking about computational training, T32 and R25 for next generation neuroscientists. This program was important to us because neuroscience data has grown in complexity across different scales, which necessitates enhanced training in complex analytic and computational approaches. And in Figure A, I've shown an example of different scales of neuroscience data. This is from a neuroscience research paper that discussed the importance of examining neuroscience research at multiple scales. Further, we think that neuroscience training requires cross-disciplinary communication between experimentalists and computational neuroscientists and clinicians. And there's been a huge growth in automated analysis approaches in neuroscience. And in B, I've listed some of those examples, like multimodal data integration and the use of these computational methods for neural and behavioral prediction. However, computational neuroscience also has barriers to entry, necessitating training in this area. And so the general goal of the training with this computational training initiative is to expand knowledge and use of computational neuroscience, big data, AI, and machine learning, and basic neuroscience topics of broad interest across Blueprint ICs. The training will establish a strong foundation of computationally based analytic techniques, experimental designs, modeling, and methods. And it will prepare students for scientific careers in computational neuroscience, including research, industry, academia, or government. The specific program goals for the two programs under computational training, which are a T32 and an R25, and I'll be going through the T32 first. The T32 promotes cross-disciplinary graduate education in neuroscience and computational methods, such as AI, data science, or computational modeling, and requires combined mentorship by computational and experimental neuroscience faculty. The R25 will reduce barriers to entry and scaffold future work in computational neuroscience by providing training in math, programming, statistics, modeling, and other computationally based analytic techniques. It can also incorporate training in a specific area in computational neuroscience, such as a modeling toolbox, technique, or topic. And the R25, as I mentioned, supports short computational and AI courses for the next generation of neuroscientists. And then those will give trainees foundational computational skills and prepare them for future research. And the T32 will support graduate research training in computational neuroscience, specifically graduate PhD programs, which will provide students with advanced computational training. And both aspects of these programs will grow computational expertise, expanding knowledge and use of AI, machine learning, and computational modeling. How to apply to these programs? We recommend emailing bptraining@nih.gov for a review of your specific aims, request assignment to NIDA, and we will prioritize applications for January Council and May due dates. This program will start in fiscal year 2028, and final determination of mission fit is done by NIH staff, and selection for the program will be communicated at the time of award. For the T32, apply to the Research Education Program Parent T32 funding opportunity and help us identify your interest in the program by referencing Blueprint Computational in the training program plan. And then R25 for the R25 short course component. We want you to also reference the word Blueprint Computational in the specific aims of the research plan section. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ashley.
Thanks. So I'm going to wrap up this webinar here with a couple more institutional training opportunities. First, the jointly sponsored institutional predoctoral training program in the neurosciences. That's a lot. We call it still JSPTPN, which is a lot, but this program is longstanding to support graduate neuroscience training. The first funding opportunity was issued in November 1996. And the overall goal is to provide joint support from multiple NIH institutes for broad training in the neurosciences during the early years of graduate education. So before students begin their full-time thesis research and they're sort of what we think of as undifferentiated in their research interests and areas, and perhaps the NIH institute that would support their future neuroscience work. So this is why it's a jointly sponsored program. Previously, there was an announcement specific to this program, but with the consolidation of funding opportunities in the fiscal year 2025, we accepted applications through the parent T32 announcement, which is how we're proceeding with the program now. So as I noted, the goals are to prepare individuals for neuroscience research and training and careers that will have a significant impact on the health-related research needs of the nation. NIH Blueprint is interested in supporting programs that fulfill the criteria that are listed here in this slide. So we expect that programs applying for this T32 opportunity are going to provide broad and fundamental research training in the neurosciences through a comprehensive 2-year training plan for the first and second years of PhD training. They also should include plans for laboratory rotations that allow students to explore different research areas, scientific approaches, and laboratory cultures before they select their dissertation lab. It also should have a curriculum that provides a strong foundation in experimental design, statistical methodology, quantitative reasoning, and scientific rigor, all these important things to do quality research. But also provide professional skills development as well, like written and oral communication, data presentation, so the other skills that you need to be a successful neuroscientist. However, we recognize that a majority of trainees are not going to go into academic research careers, so we also expect programs will include exposure to career opportunities that make use of the skills that you develop during PhD training, but are not the academic career path. Just as a schematic of the activities that I've reviewed, again, on how this fits in with the PhD training experience, this jointly sponsored program would support PhD students in the first 2 years of graduate training here, followed by, however, the program would support trainees until they complete their degree requirements. So that could be through other T32s, a fellowship, individual fellowship, and R1, just the institutional support. So this support, the stipend and funding is for the first 2 years, and the programming generally for the first 2 years, although it could be describing the oversight more broadly across the training experience of individuals that are part of the graduate training program. So again, the core components are around broad neuroscience curriculum, rigor and quantitative literacy, having rotations, the professional skills development. Some other activities that we would expect to see are around community building, because this is supporting the graduate program, and a cohort of trainees coming in and starting their training all together. There's usually activities around oversight and community building. And also we put this here not as a requirement, but we definitely are seeing an increase in the use of generative AI in education and training. And so if your program is working in that area, what we would expect is actually, not even if it's just working in that area. At this time, I think all programs should be considering the use of Gen AI in graduate education, what is appropriate and ethical use, how this can facilitate or impede learning and advancement in someone's career. So, like all of the others have said, we have the VP training at nih.gov email address for technical assistance. If you have questions about this program, interested in applying, you're renewing your program, and you want to follow up, I suggest contacting us at that email address. We'll be accepting applications through the parent T32 funding announcement currently. And To help identify applications, please put JSPTPN in training program section 2, program plan. That will ensure that we can find your submission and route it to this program. For many institutes that support this program, this is the only mechanism by which they support early stage first and second year pre-doctoral research training in neuroscience. So if you're interested in T32 program in neuroscience that is recruiting this population, you should be applying likely to this program. And also request assignment to NINDS or NIMH would help us with identifying the applications as well. For these T32s, we're prioritizing applications for January Council, which corresponds with the May application due dates, so that we can make a selection at once of all of the programs that will be funded, supported by the jointly sponsored program, and have awards made that correspond as well as we can with the start of the academic year when first year students are beginning their training. And then, as was said previously too, the final determination of mission fit with this program, though, will be done by NIH staff, and the selection for the program would be communicated when an award is made. So now I'm going to give a brief overview of the National Library of Medicine's institutional grants for research training in biomedical informatics, data science, and artificial intelligence, AI. So the National Library of Medicine has supported university-based programs to train researchers in biomedical informatics for over 40 years. And historically has run an T15 program, an institutional training program that supports advanced training for the next generation of biomedical informatics and data science researchers. The last announcement, RFA LM 21001, focused on the development of training curricula, professional development, and preparedness for independent careers in biomedical informatics and data science. That has expired, but there's still a need for highly trained biomedical informatics researchers who directly advance the National Library of Medicine's mission in data science, artificial intelligence, and knowledge management for health and biomedicine, and especially a need for those in areas of clinical data integration, machine learning, and translational science. So a T15 program is able to provide support for stipends, tuition and fees, and training and related expenses for those individuals to help support building the biomedical informatics research workforce. The key features of the programs that NLM has funded are incorporating innovative curricula that reflect the rapidly evolving fields, and supporting NIH and NLM strategic priorities with an emphasis on the development of portable and translatable technical skills and experience in informatics, data science, and AI ML in health and medicine, as well as integrating methods and perspectives across disciplines. It sounds very vague, and partly that's because right now this is a forecast out, so the expectation is that it could become a funding opportunity, but it's something that the National Library of Medicine has expressed interest in continuing a program. So you should check grants.gov for this particular funding opportunity number, RFA LM 26004, for the publication status if you're interested in this opportunity, as well as the program contact their NLM program at nih.gov if you have questions or need technical assistance in preparing an application. For Blueprint, if this becomes a funding opportunity, I think this fits well with the overall interests of Blueprint in supporting the research workforce. So we expect that we would be able to co-fund slots for training in basic, translational, and clinical neuroscience relevant to the goals of this program. But the final determination of fit would be done by the NIH staff, and selection for Blueprint support would be communicated at the time of award, with the awards being managed by the National Library of Medicine. So that is the end of our presentation on the specific opportunities, but please stay in touch. Here again are the contact emails for Blueprint and the Brain Initiative if you have questions. We also have program pages for both of these that have some more information on the programs that we've presented. Or if you Google NIH and Neuroscience Blueprint or NIH and Brain Initiative, hopefully you can navigate to the correct ones. We are undergoing some consolidation and revamping of our web pages at NIH. You can also monitor the NIH Institute, Center, and Office profile pages, which give information on mission areas, funding priorities, and opportunities they support. Under grants.nih.gov. There's also alerts on grants.gov that you can subscribe to and get probably more emails than you want about what's happening at NIH. And monitor the NIH grants and funding calendar of events to find fun events like this one that you're all participating in now. We're going to open the breakout rooms now. Here on the left is the list of all of the opportunities we presented. So those will be the rooms. To navigate to a room, you'll see in your meeting controls, something that says rooms with like a square and a square. And you should be able to click that, more options to join. And if you want to switch around to another room, you can use that same tool to go to another room. And we'll have the chat open, but also you'll be able to unmute and put on your video if you want to talk directly to us. But the recording will end here. The chats are not, and the breakout conversations will not be recorded and part of what we post after the event. So I'll be in the